Welcome back. We are getting ready to do some updates, some live updates to the church website design course. These are answering questions that people have had, as well as filling in some issues, some holes that we have had in the course that just needed to be updated, and talk about a few things that are coming, that are on their way. This has been a long time incoming itself, for a lot of reasons I'm not going to go into at this point. But what I do want to announce is that we have some exciting things in the background that we're preparing and trying to get ready for kind of a revision of the course, as well as a relaunch of the course in a larger volume. So we're excited about those. One of the things that I have done is begun working with a professional graphics designer. As I have mentioned to those, and I think I mentioned in the course, so if you've gone through the course, you know this. I know I've mentioned it to individuals personally. I'm a builder. I can build almost anyone's design, but I'm not a professional designer. And so it's really exciting for me to be able to have a sister in Christ, Ariana Shannon, on board, who is this is what she does for a living. And she is more than happy to stay out of the building side, and I am more than happy to stay out of the design side, as much as, at the same time we work together to create some more impactful designs. One of the things this is also going to allow over time, not all of this will come immediately, but this is what we're working on over the course of this year, is also the ability to have a choice. Maybe, as you take the course, you like this kind of layout. It's very clean. It's very two-color. It's very, very flat in the sense of not a lot of rounded edges, not a lot of gradients. It's just very modern and easy to look at. Maybe you like more of a more modern approach, or just a different appeal, different feel, is what you're looking for your church website. We're hoping to offer you two different paths, that both of which will get supported, both of which will get updated, but will give you more options to choose from in your general design of your church website, while at the same time still feeling very up to date, not feeling old. So those are some things we're going to work on. Some other areas that we're going to work on are some things, and this involves today. Let's get to today. Today, we're going to show you how to update areas that either are out of date. Let's say, for instance, here's an example. Fall 2019 seminar. Well, we need to get that out of there because we're in 2020. Maybe we have another event coming up, or maybe we want to just save that announcement space in the background, not have it presented yet because we don't have the details yet of maybe a 2020 event that we actually want to advertise. So what do we do with this event space, and how do we work that to hide it in the background without deleting it and having to recreate it? So we'll talk through that. We'll talk through a few other additional updates as well as we go through this. One example might be the footer. We do have a new footer design that is being created right now, and will hopefully be launched to the community very soon. So let's dig in and get started. We're going to log in to the back end of our website. I want to make mention of a couple of other things while I'm doing this. We're also going to show how to add a YouTube or Vimeo video to your website. as well as we'll show you how to embed a Facebook video on your website. That has a number more steps involved, so just be aware of that. They do not make that process as easy from Facebook as YouTube and Vimeo do, but that's just something you can be aware of. And then we'll also work through a few other details. So let's go I don't always, work logically, and so I'm interrupting myself here to talk about one other thing that I realized I haven't talked about, and that is updating your website. One of the things that is important with websites is not just updating the content, but when you're working with WordPress, you need to keep the actual WordPress installation updated. WordPress prompts you to do that by a number of visual cues. It's this icon right here, or when you log in, this that says updates and says there's 3. If you see that there are updates to do, you should do them. But you should also do a backup of them of your website first. So I'm going to combine a few details here, which will flesh out in individual videos for the course, but this is a live session and we're dealing with a few things in a live fashion. Okay? If you do not already have a backup plugin installed, what I would recommend is that you go to plugins and add new, and that you search for WP all-in-one migration. Now, while this can be a migration tool, it is this plugin right here by ServeMask that we're talking about. It can also be a tool to allow you to create a backup of your website for the purposes of having a copy that's not only backed up on the server itself, but also you can download this backup so that if something happens to your website in the future and you need to restore it, maybe even to a completely different website provider, you can upload this file and be able to create your website or restore your website on a completely different provider utilizing a completely different server, or maybe something happened to your server, you need to restore it. All of this is possible through this one plugin. Now, there is an option for this to be unlocked for additional features through a paid version, but there is a free version you can definitely get started with, and I highly recommend getting started until you run into something that you need that you can't get with the free version. So I needed to update mine. If you don't have this installed yet, you have something that looks like this. It'll say install now. You'll click that, wait for a moment until it's installed, and then you'll click activate. At which point, once it's installed and activated, all-in-one WP migration will be down here. And you'll notice there's 3 areas. There's export, import, and backups. Backups will show you all of the previous backups that you have done, or exports that you have done. So each time it exports it, it also saves a copy right here. There's an advantage to that in that if you do an export before you run your updates, then if something happens and the website gets maybe a little bit wonky or messed up because of an update, which can happen, that it's not normal that it happens. It's very rare, especially if we're talking about basic sites like these that aren't doing a lot of crazy, extravagant things. But if an update breaks something, you can come back here to the backups and you can hit the restore button on the export or the backup that you had just done before you ran the updates. So let's walk you through how to do that. Before we run our updates, we come to export. We come to export to a file. And our file is ready. Now this file is a weird extension. Chrome will sometimes argue with you that this file is potentially unsafe because it's not a normal file extension. You'll notice down at the bottom of my page right now, at the bottom of my browser, it says that this file is called, it ends with WRESS. That's not a normal Windows or Mac extension. So sometimes Chrome will argue with you that you don't actually want to download this file. You can feel safe to ignore it. So I'm just going to download this to the desktop and hit save. And so that file is going to download. That file is now on my computer. I could install WordPress, just a normal WordPress installation through Server Pilot on a completely new server, take that file and upload it, point my domain name through Cloudflare to that server, and now my website is running on a completely new server. And I didn't have to spend a dime other than launching up that new server. If there's something wrong with your server, you can move to a new server just through this tool, which is why it's called a migration tool. Now, there is also the ability to import a backup. So you'll notice one of the limitations of the free version is that it's limited in file size. That's just an important detail, that if your file size here, you'll notice it was 378 megabytes. With all the media that we have, the images that we have, the different things that are on the website already, we're at 378 megabytes. If that exceeds 512 megabytes, you've exceeded the limit of the free version. You would have to consider a paid version of the tool. So you're not there yet, but you might get there. We'll talk about this tool more and why I like it so much and its values for really being able to have some peace of mind about your website and know that you've got a backup if something happens and you can restore that backup very quickly and very easily. Okay? But if you wanted to import, you would just import from a file, and then we had that file on our desktop. And it's that one right there. It will name the file the domain of the website and then the date and the time. I'm not sure why the time is showing up like that, because it's 6:25 in the morning and not whatever time that is. But that's what it's supposed to do. So we would click open, and then that 387 megabyte file would re-upload and import as the website. The images would come in, the domain name would be set, the user accounts would exist, every bit of the website would immediately import in. And like I said, if it was a new server, a new WordPress install, you would have your website back up and running on a new server. From the backups, you can now come here to restore. And this may be a paid feature. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't want to restore it right now because I'm doing a live broadcast, but this may be a paid feature. If we do a full video on this and it's in the course, we'll mention which features are paid and which features aren't. But as I mentioned, the one thing about this plugin that I like, much like the theme for the Pro theme, is it's a one-time payment. It's not an annual payment. If you buy it once, you've got it. You can use it on as many websites as you want. You can use it as many times as you want. So it's a very valuable plugin, and I highly recommend it. So that's a backup. Do that backup. Like I said, most of the time, you don't need it. You may never use it, but you have it in case you need it. Also remember that you have your weekly backups at DigitalOcean of your server, so that if something happens more catastrophic, you can always go back to the DigitalOcean backups and restore those. We'll do a video on that. I'm going to write that down. If I don't write it down, I won't do it. So we need to do a video on DigitalOcean restoration. At some point. Okay. So now we're going to do the updates. So before you do updates, you come and you do an export and you download a copy of it. If you export it and then cancel the download, your export will still be here in your backups. So you could always come back later and download it. But I do recommend, if you have sufficient speed and internet connectivity to download it, go ahead and download it. Because if something on your website messes up through an update, and let's say you can't log into your website or something like that, you're going to want to have had that file. So go ahead and download it if you can. The next thing you do is come in here to updates, and it will show you the things that need to be updated. You can select all the plugins. Let's say, for instance, there was one theme update and 3 plugin updates. You would have to run them separately. So we're going to update the plugins first. And now those are updated. We're going to click Return to WordPress Updates page. And if there was a theme that needed to be updated, we'd check it and click Update Themes. If WordPress needs to be updated, you should be at 5.3.2 right now. You would have an update button for WordPress. If WordPress is telling you you need to update, then do the plugin updates first, do the theme updates second, and then do the WordPress updates so that all the plugins and themes are updated before you update WordPress. The basic reason to that is there may be new code in a plugin that they have updated to make it compatible with a new version of WordPress, and you want that new code in there before WordPress updates so that if there's a problem with the plugin, that problem is solved before you get to that new version of WordPress. So I always do plugins first, themes second, WordPress last. After you're finished, if you would like, you can always run another backup. You've checked everything. You've gone through and said, okay, everything worked. I know I'm good. Now I've got a new backup. Just, as a peace of mind, all those updates are done and I have that backup. Now you'll notice that time I didn't download it. I just hit cancel on the download, but that backup is still right here. You can also apply labels. So let's say, for instance, you might look at this 2 weeks from now and go, why do I have 2 from the same day? And you'll notice, oh, one was from before the updates. Okay, well, I don't need that one anymore because everything's been fine. I've been running on these new updates for 2 weeks now, and I don't need these others anymore. You do have a limited amount of space, 20 gigabytes, on your DigitalOcean server. So keep things cleaned up if possible. So that just helps keeping things cleaned up. All right, I know I'm good. I've got a working backup. It's downloaded as well. So I could always come back and hit download. And I don't need either of those 2. So I'm going to delete those 2, hit cancel. I'm going to come back here and download again. I hit cancel because when I clicked on the other files, it changed the file name. And I want the file name to match right there. Okay, so we've talked about all-in-one WP migration. We've talked about updating WordPress. Now let's talk about making content advertising or making our event advertising on our homepage go away when we don't actually need it published. Okay? So, again, we're going to come here and look at this. And down here on our website, we've got this area where we've got an advertisement for a 2019 fall seminar. Maybe we have another seminar coming in 2020, but we don't have the information for it yet. We don't have graphics for it yet. We don't know the name of it yet. We need to pull that down. We don't need to advertise old stuff unless, now this is something to be said, if you did an event last year that you recorded maybe video of or audio for, and now you want to advertise the fact that people can go listen to it and or watch it on your website, you can retain this space on your front page to advertise the recordings. So think about this in two senses. This is a space where you can advertise what's coming, and in the intervening time between what is coming and what's coming next year, after the event, you can advertise what has already happened. An example of that, one of our students at the course is the preacher for the Sevierville Church of Christ. They have recently hosted a portion of the Great Smoky Mountain Marriage Retreat. He was the one who requested, hey, how do he created a Great Smoky Mountain Marriage Retreat event space, and he did a great job. But the event's over. And so he asked the question, what do I do with this space? How do I make it disappear? I don't want to have to rebuild it because they're going to have the marriage retreat next year. What can I do to make that disappear and not advertise it now that the event's over? So the answer is twofold. Number one, we can save it out so that we can put it back next year. I'll show you how to do that. We can also make this whole space disappear for a time. It's really going to still be there. It's just not going to show up when the page loads. Or the option number three is you could save out a copy of the advertisement for the event and transition the space over to advertising the recordings of that event if those are freely available somewhere on the site or at another site. Okay? So let's begin with heading up here to, we're looking at our page right now. We're going to head up to Pro and Edit Page. If you're just in the dashboard, of course, you go to the Pro area and you click on Content and then choose the page that you want to edit. One thing that I should mention here is that there has been a change. There have been updates to the Pro theme since we launched the course, and we are going to be coming out with new videos dealing with some of those new features, because some of those new features are very exciting. But you'll notice a lot of the columns, a lot of the rows inside the navigation will say Classic now. They'll say Classic V2 because they're now on Pro version 3. We'll discuss some of the features of these Classic columns, Classic rows, and also some of the power of the new versions. Just know that these still work. They've just created a new edition of these features that have additional value, additional features. So everything is still going to operate. They still maintain compatibility with it. It's just labeled as Classic, indicating this has been from a previous version of the theme. So just be aware of that. There's nothing negative about it. It's just something that you do want to be aware of. Another thing that's changed since the original edition of the course is this layout navigation has changed. It used to be that you could look through the rows and the columns here, but you had to jump into the rows or the columns to be able to actually look down to the individual items. They have changed that, and it is hugely powerful now. Now you can use this layout area and this navigation, shall we say, outline feature to see every single individual thing that you have inside your page. That is phenomenal. It makes it very easy when you're trying to navigate around and you're trying to highlight a specific thing. In the past, you would have to scroll up and down the page and you'd have to click on it, and then you'd have to come over here and maybe you clicked on the wrong thing or you clicked on an empty space, and you couldn't get easily, especially if there were multiple layers in a vertical sense, it wasn't easy to necessarily select the correct thing. Well, now they've really improved that with this feature over here, so you can use this navigation to jump down into a very specific thing and know that, you know, you're highlighting the thing that you actually want. So let's say that that welcome image, that's right there. That button, that's right there. This column over here, there's a text space up there. There's a headline there. There's a text space there. So you can very easily navigate and improve what you're working on through those tools. That being said, let's come up here to the layout, scroll down to our event advertisement space. So that's right here. And if you want to, in the case of Brother Ruiz, he wants to save out a copy of the advertisement to use next year because he knows that advertisement is going to be needed next year. Here's the best way to do it. In the layout area for that page, know exactly which space covers all of your advertisement that you need. In this case, it's the event advertisement space, and click Save Template. Give it a name. So you could call it whatever year fall seminar. So over the years, you may have different versions of this that you've saved out. That's perfectly fine. You may use the same one again every year. You may not, but just give it a name that you'll recognize what event this was. So in his case, he might choose Great Smoky Mountain Marriage Retreat 2019 or MR 2019, whatever works for you. Just call it something you recognize. So here we're going to do 2019 Fall Seminar. And what you will do is uncheck each part of the page that doesn't have anything to do with the seminar. So in that case, we just have the event advertisement right here. And we're going to name it, leave that as the only thing selected, and click Save. What that will do is it will take that whole section, the design, the images, the buttons, the styling, everything, and it will place it in our templates. There it is right there. Something additional that you can do, if we go back to the page itself, here's our seminar advertisement. I'm going to open a tool on Windows called the snipping tool. Under Windows 10, it's actually called Snip and Sketch. And I'm going to create a new screenshot. So I'm going to use this to create a screenshot of just this space. And you can see here, that the Snip and Sketch tool has created that seminar screenshot. Let's save that to my desktop. In Mac OS, there's a way to do this with I think it's the function key. No, it's not the function key. It's the option key. No, I'm wrong again. Command, Shift, and the number 4 is, I believe, what allows you to screenshot a portion of the image, and it throws it as a saved file there on the desktop. So Command Shift 4 allows you to select the space of the screen you want to screenshot. So we've done that. Now we can come back over here to that template, and you can actually add a preview of what that template looks like. So that as here's my file. So as you're looking through these templates later, if especially you didn't name it very well, you can hover over it and see a preview of what that template has before you add it to a page. Okay? So that's also useful because now you could take that template and download it as a file to your computer. If you maintain websites for multiple congregations, you could actually use this to build templates or designs for multiple different congregations all at once, especially if you're all in the same area and you want to share advertising the same event. Build the event advertisement once and put it on all the websites you maintain so that they all share that same advertisement. You can also then, if there's an update to it, update it on one site and then go upload it as upload that template to all the other sites, import it back to the page. And again, you're saving yourself time. That's exactly what we do with the content and the templates for the course. Okay. So let's head back over to the home page. We've talked about how to save it for later use. Now let's talk about what we can do to hide it. If we want to hide it and just say, you know what, I'm going to need this later, but I don't need it right now. What you can do is you can click on the magnifying glass for that particular space and come in here to customize. And these 5 icons are normally used to hide something based upon screen size. Let's say, for instance, you have a design that's specific to your mobile version of your website or designed for phones or tablets, but you don't want that same design used on a desktop screen size where you've got a keyboard and mouse and vice versa. You could select certain areas for these to be hidden based on screen size. But if you think about that in this context, what if you hid it on all screen sizes? If you select all of them, then it's always hidden. It's completely hidden. So now we've taken that space and we've made the event advertisement disappear, even though we could go unhide it anytime. And we would immediately be able to have our event advertisement space back. That being said, it does leave you with 2 weirdly lined up bars right here, the divider bars. So whichever one you prefer, since one of them matches the above color and one of them matches the below color, provided that still is true on your site, you can go hide one of the bars as well. And now everything should match. If it doesn't match, you want to hide both of them or just not have a bar there, you can do that as well. So that's how you can hide anything on your website that you don't want there right now. Now, a good point to be made is this upcoming button jumped us down to that section. So now that button doesn't go anywhere. You will want to think about that and come in here to customize and hide that button as well. You could, if you say, well, that's great, but now that leaves my buttons kind of out of whack. Trying to find the right area. Alternatively, what we could have done, so this is the one that we hid. We're going to come in here and unhide it. So now it's back. What we could do is we could actually save it out and just then delete it. We could always import it back. Or what we could do is move it to the bottom. So now it's the one on the far right. And then change that row to only show 4. So now it's hidden because we're saying, you know what? We only have 4 columns. Even though there's something in that 5th column, it's never going to show up unless we come back over here and bring it back. So any of these buttons that you want to hide, if you'll move it to the last one and then reduce the columns down 1, then you will have hidden it from sight and be able to operate with 4, and it will look the way it should. Okay, so we've talked about updates. Always do your updates. If you don't have to do them every day, but when you log in, especially if it's been a week or 2 weeks, go do your updates. Do a backup first, export a copy of that backup and download it, then do your updates. Once you've done the updates and confirmed, it doesn't have to be the same day, but you've confirmed that those updates are working and they didn't break anything, export another backup and download that one. And then you can delete the previous one. Okay. Now let's talk about YouTube. On your website, you want to add content. Let's say, for instance, we want to add a recent sermon. Well, I have a few of those. I'm going to start with Vimeo. This is my preferred hosting location for my content. It is a paid service, but it has a lot of value because of that. And I do also use YouTube and Facebook, but we'll start here. I do a daily devotional. If you've not signed up to receive my daily devotional by email, you should do that. Here is today's. It was uploaded